Hey guys, it's Tori, and today I have a bit of a shorter video. I really wanted to make sure that I had at least one video go up this month that was specifically for Ancientsathon, but wasn't like my TBR or my wrap-up. And something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and it's actually come up in the comments as well, so it added to my thought process on this topic, is I really want to read more outside of European literature. The reason why I haven't already is because when I first started Ancientsathon, it really was because I hadn't read that much from pre-1700 myself. So even most of the European works were really new to me. Like, I just had not read. I had read probably more than most people in school and stuff. I had taken a couple of classes that were set pre-1700s. One was European literature, one was British literature specifically. And so I explored a lot of different types of literature, but I just definitely wasn't as well read in that as I would like to be. And so I thought, you know what, let's do Ancientsathon, because not only will it be a great opportunity for people who love that type of literature to talk about it and have more of an excuse to read it, but also it would push me to make sure I'm getting some of that kind of literature into my regular reading a little bit more. And it's definitely done that for me. I've definitely read a lot more of this type of literature than I think I would have if I had not started Ancientsathon with my co-hosts. But I did mostly focus on European literature because that was the most easily accessible for me. It was also just stuff I was able to hear about more, so a lot of outside of European stuff I just haven't really heard of. And so it's a lot harder for me to think about getting them or looking them up when I just don't really know what there is, and I'm honestly intimidated by it because I just really don't even know where to start. I have had a few people comment various options that I could read for more Eastern, particularly stuff. Most of it is Middle East or more deeper into Asia, so China, Japan. So I'm going to list a few that I've heard of that I remember and have on my little list. There's only 7 here, and I would love to do more, so this video is also to encourage people to put comments down below. I know that there are some comments people have given me that recommended some other works besides these that I thought were really interesting, but I can't for the life of me remember what videos those comments were on. And since I'm just now actually making a physical list of this type of literature, I've lost it. So if you have one that you've commented before, but it's not amongst the ones I'm going to list right now, please let me know down below. Let me know a little bit about what it's about, and hopefully next year I'll be able to read a bit more of this. I will say originally I was going to do John Donne for my poetry prompts, which I still may read 1 or 2 by him, but I have decided to switch over to Chinese poetry. I don't have a specific poet in mind, so if you have an idea, feel free to let me know. I was actually planning on reading it today, the day I'm filming this, to read some of that Chinese poetry, so I will have already read some, but if you have specific poets in mind, please still let me know, because I can add them to this list, and maybe before the end of the month I can try at least 1 or 2 of them. So anyway, let's get into this list of some that I've had recommended to me. So if you are also looking for some works outside of Europe from this huge swath of time, then you can also get some of these recommendations. So the first 2 I have are by the same author. The first is The Tale of Genji, or I don't know how to pronounce it, I apologize, by Murasaki Shikibu, and then there's also The Diary of Lady Murasaki. Lady Murasaki was a Japanese writer. I can't remember exactly what time period she was living in, but The Tale of Genji, I believe, is considered one of the first, if not the first, like, novel ever written, and so I'm very curious to read it. It's pretty chunky, and we don't even have the full thing, which is just crazy to me. So that's primarily why I haven't specifically read this one, because this is the one I've definitely heard about the most and been the most interested in. But like I said, it's a chunky one, so I'm a little intimidated by it, so I may end up starting with her diary because it's shorter and it will introduce me at least into her writing and potentially into the culture of writing that was in Japan during that time. Number 3 I have on my list is Gilgamesh. Now, I have read Gilgamesh before, but I've only read it once, and it was a specific translation. I don't even know what translation it was. It was for a class. So I would love to read Gilgamesh again, but in a different translation. I have had recommended to me a translation recommendation by Sophus Helle, I believe is how you pronounce their name. They also translated one of my other recommendations, which is Enheduana, the complete poems by Enheduana. She was the very first writer that we still have stuff from at this point. I mean, I think Gilgamesh is technically the first work of literature, but that's an anonymous work, and then Enheduana is the very first poet, the very first author that we know of. And so I have heard about Enheduana before as well and would love to read some of her work. Then we have, of course, 1001 Nights or Arabian Nights, depending on what edition you're reading. I have an, of course, abridged version. I don't know if you can get an unabridged version of the Arabian Nights. Maybe you can, but I'm sure there's only a couple of people who have published it because I believe it's very, very long. But I do have one from Barnes & Noble. I didn't get it down because I just didn't want to. It's at the bottom of one of my stacks, so I did not want to get it out. But I do have that, and I do intend to read that at some point. If you don't know about that one, that basically, it follows a frame story, I believe, of a woman who is taken to wife by this king who is known to murder his wives. He keeps getting married, and then those wives are found dead the next morning, and so she's next on the list, and she decides to tell him stories to keep herself alive, basically. So it's really just a collection of short stories. It kind of reminds me in some ways a little bit of Canterbury Tales or the Decameron, as far as like there's this frame narrative and then they're telling these other stories, but it's supposedly only one person that's telling the story, so it's a little different. But, and I could honestly be totally wrong about all of that frame story nonsense, so I apologize if I am, but I'm pretty sure that's what I remember hearing. So anyway, I do intend to read that at some point as well. Then there's of course The Art of War by Sun Tzu, I think is how you pronounce all of these names are gonna kill me. Anyway, I do intend to read this. I wasn't sure for a long time because I'm just not really a philosophy reader, or like, I don't consider myself very into nonfiction that's not like history, as far as, especially during this huge swath of time. I've read part of The Prince and found it interesting, and then I've read stuff by, I guess, Plato, but the Sophocles Apologies works. So I've read some of that stuff and have enjoyed it, but there's just something about it. It just isn't something that I instinctively reach for, but I just feel like it's such a classic of Chinese literature. Like, it's probably one of the most well-known classics of Chinese literature, and so I feel like I just should at least give it a try so that I can say I've read it and experienced something so famous. So there's that one. And the final book I have on this list is The Pillow Book by Shonagon, who is also Japanese. I believe he was a contemporary of Murasaki, the author of Tale of Genji, and this is really just basically kind of like a diary, it sounds like. I just did a little bit of research on it, but it's another one that sounds interesting. I would love to read more diaries in general in my life as far as historical figures go, so I think this is a really good option for me. And it doesn't seem terribly long, although I didn't really look that deep into its length, so maybe it will surprise me and be pretty long. But I have a feeling, well, the comment it was in was about me wanting to read Tale of Genji and them saying, if you don't have time for that, here's some other options. So I'm assuming it's not terribly long, and it's a good introduction into some more Eastern literature. So anyway, those are the ones I know about. As I said, I would happily hear any other recommendations you have for this basic idea. Hear any other recommendations that you have for non-European ancient literature. I would love if you know of anything African, Australian, or from the Americas. I know most of it is not, they don't have literature the same way we see European and Asian cultures having literature. But if you know of anything, let me know. If not, if you know of any really good collections of myths and legends from those areas of the world, I would also love to hear about that. I just really would love to branch out. It's very intimidating to me, like I said, because there's just so much I don't know. So anything you can give me will help. And if there's anything on the list that you feel like that I already gave that you feel like would particularly be a good place to start, please let me know that as well. And hopefully, like I said, next year I'll be able to focus in a little bit more on spreading to other cultures and stuff. I mean, I will probably still read European stuff because there's just so much of it and so much that I want to read from it. but I'd like to include a little bit more outside of Europe if possible. And I mean, in the meantime, if I can get that in, that would be great. I'm not very good at reading Ancientsathon works in between Ancientsathons, which is why I do Ancientsathon. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I hope you are having a wonderful reading month. If you're participating in Ancientsathon, please let me know down below what you're reading and how it's going. I would love to know. I hope you are having a wonderful week. Thank you so much for watching again, and I will see you next time.